Okay. Jain, good morning, Namaskar, dear friends and well-wisher of Vishwadhyan Kendra, Center for International Studies. This is Ajay Gajaria, President Vishwadhyan Kendra, Mumbai. I am feeling very much delighted to welcome you all for the first international event for the year 2021, Walk the Talk. Let me introduce Vishwadhyan Kendra. It is non-government, non-profit organization to serve as a platform for understanding various culture and tradition around the world and promote research studies on them. Coronavirus undoubtedly impacted on our physical activities, so we have no choice but to go for Zoom meeting and using social media for our purpose. Vishwadhan Kendra also serve as a platform that air views, opinion on contemporary national and international events, keeping India's best interest in mind. We further share our findings and thoughts on appropriate platforms. I am sure you look forward to see and listen our uh, distinguished guest panelist on today's subject, Israel-Palestine conflict new dimension. So I will now hand over the rein to my colleague and senior member of Vishwadhyan Kendra, Sri Prakash Sahasrabudhe, who will moderating wonderful session. I hope all you will enjoy. I once again welcome our distinguished guest, analyst, all of you again. Sri Prakash, you can carry on the program. Prakash, unmute your.
Yes, I did. Thank you, Ajay for that crisp and brief introduction to VAK. So, I, Prakash Sahasrabudhe, once again welcome you all and specifically welcome our distinguished speakers today for this insightful discussion, which is about to begin on recently concluded Israel-Palestine conflict. To start with, I'm sure you all will join me in paying homage to the Indian nurse Soumya, who got killed in Palestine due to Hamas rocket attack, and also appreciate the graceful treatment accorded to her mortal remains by the Israeli authorities. We appreciate that. Many think we got a feedback that this title, Israel-Palestine War, is a kind of misnomer. And there are reasons for that, which we agree. And it should have been put probably Israel-Hamas conflict. And the reason for that primarily would be all Palestinians are not represented by Hamas. We all know there are bloody conflict going on between Hamas and other rival group Fatah. And they don't see each eye to eye, and both claim to represent Palestine. So the jury is still out who represents the Palestine. Having said that, I would like to bring into focus another fact. Contrary to what many believe, that all Jews live in Israel and all Arabs live in Palestine. But if you see the Israel demography, there are about 20% Arab Muslims who live in Israel and 80% Jewish, not much different from what we have at home. So they have been living side by side, and there are occasions, but never there are internal riots like this. Now, having said that, whenever such strifes take place, there are always people around to fish in troubled water, either for their, they look it as an arms market, or they want to leverage this conflict between, which is going on for long years. I mean, I don't want to go into that history. But some countries foment trouble and instigate one or the other side to establish their leadership or fulfill their global ambitions. There are others who want to expand their zone of influence. So there are different kinds of players who try to take advantage of such situations. And I'm not an expert. I'm as a commoner as any one of you here. Maybe some of those present are experts as well. So we can only have questions, we can only have observations, and we have experts to decipher that for us. There are a couple of points I would like to mention before I get into the introduction of the speakers. One is, are we late in organizing this event? Well, that depends upon what one wants to take out of this event. If you want to kind of first, then we are late. Because nowadays it is quite in vogue, sabse pehle. But if you want to dwell on the takeaways, then probably we are not late. Point one. Second, are we biased? Is emphatic yes in favor of India. So we have no hesitation in saying that. Our tagline is Indian perspective. Having said this, let me come to the introduction of our distinguished panelists today. Let me start introducing the most decorated, one of the most decorated generals of Indian Army, who needs no introduction. And I am talking of Lieutenant General D.B. Shekatkar sir, who is present, and we are graced with your presence, sir. Thank you very much for giving your precious time to us and our listeners. He is a person who has seen it all and done it all. He knows in and out of this quagmire of India-Palestine relationship. He knows it all. And we are very happy he is with us today. He probably one of the few who knows the India's security and strategic thought processes better than anyone else. So I'm sure, as always, he is going to give us great insights which are not so commonly available. Thank you, sir, once again for being with us. Next speaker today we have is Mrs. Swati Torsekar. Sunil, you will have those speakers on screen, I suppose. Swati ji, though is an IT professional, but she is a very keen observer and analyzer of international affairs. You can read her, see her on internet. She is a, if I may call, habitual blogger and blogger. So there are ample videos and her articles available on internet. We are very happy that she is with us. She has 3 books to her credit on topics like China and China policies, Naxal menace, and Islamic terrorism. All 3 books are very well received by critics and readers alike. And you will see that she certainly has an eye for nuance when we listen to her. Thank you, Swati ji, once again for being with us, for finding time for us and our viewers. Thank you very much. Meyer, I hope Nissim has joined.
Yes,
Anyway.
I have joined, sir.
Okay, let me introduce. I'm not sure whether Nissim is still online. I'm not able to see. Fair enough. But let me proceed with introducing Nissim Ruben. Nissim Ruben works for Asia Pacific Institute as Assistant Director Asia Pacific Institute is an arm of American Jewish Committee. He works in Washington, D.C. His expertise and domain is diplomatic circles, both track 1, track 2. He works and observes very closely diaspora dynamics, be it Arabic diaspora, be it Indian diaspora, be it Jewish diaspora. And he certainly knows in diplomacy how pushes and pulls work and how nudges become shows and vice versa. So I am sure we are going to have a 360 degree view and takeaways and the dimensions of this just, I will not say concluded, but just stopped conflict between Israel and Hamas. At last, but not the least, let me introduce the fourth panelist today, and he is Maher Moses. Maher Moses is a socially and intellectually very, very alert person. He lives in Ashdod, which is about 40 kilometers south of Tel Aviv, if I am right, by road, but much closer as the crow flies. And that is important because that is how the rockets fired by the Hamas fly. He and his family have migrated about a year back from our own Thane. So he has spent all his life here. He knows how we think, how we aspire. And today we have the benefit of ground view from Moses Maher, that what happened there before and after this war. And he is already if I may call, celebrity on YouTube. He's probably one of the much viewed person today. And as I said, he has always his pulse on the society around him, which you will see in a short. Yeah. Now, with that probably long introduction, I would like to invite Maher to tell us how he sees this conflict escalated, what happened there, what people went through, and how the peace is returning back. Maher, I hand over the mic to you now. Thank you.
Am I audible now?
You are audible.
Okay. Let me say shalom and namaste to all my friends, my family, all over the world. This is a family. It's 6:30 now. सकाळचे 6:45 वाजले तिथे. Like morning in Israel. Shabbat, Saturday, very holy day. Everybody's at peace and everything. I'll come straight to the point. Of course, people who are watching, I'll just tell you what Israel is. Israel is basically, for a layman to understand geography, it's if you travel from east to west, it's not more than 3 hours. And if you go from north to south, it's not more than 8 to 10 hours, depending on the traffic. This is how big is Israel. Okay? I live in a city with my wife and 2 daughters, called Ashdod, which is the second largest port city in Israel, very strategic port on the Mediterranean Sea. And Gaza is not very far from here. It's only 38 kilometers on land north of Gaza. Gaza is a piece of strip which is on the north and the east is connected to Israel. On the west, it is the Mediterranean Sea. And down below to the south is around 11 kilometers of border sharing with Egypt. It was 10th of May when we were reading about the conflict going on in Jerusalem, which we'll not go into. But this is just an excuse for them to start something rubbish. And suddenly it was around 6:30 when the alarm, when the siren went off. And the siren is very piercing, and that was the first experience we had, because we have heard sirens of ambulances and fire brigades, which we are used to, but not this siren. And this siren was very terrifying. We were of course informed how to behave, how to act. Those things are educated, but we have to run out. The moment the siren goes off, you have anything between 30 to 45 seconds to rush out of the house. You have two options. Either you go and stand in the stairways, the staircase area, which is a strong RCC construction, or you go into a bunker room. Now, that facility is not available in my building, because in my house, because my house building, which I'm staying right now, rent place, is a slightly older building. And now the buildings which were built after 2000, there is a provision that there's a bunker room attached in the house. You have a strong room, so you can go into the room. It has got a metal door with a metal window, bulletproof, a bomb-proof glass and everything. So we have to go out. Now, when the siren goes off, it's not one of a time. It happened repeatedly. You know, it kept on coming. And first siren comes off, you run out, you stand there with your family, you leave everything as it is. Whatever state you are eating, drinking, you are in the washroom, in the bathroom, ladies in the kitchen, whatever, you just pick up, you just rush out to a safer area. And this siren goes off it's only an indication. The moment the siren goes off, you go out. But when you're outside, there are bombs coming down, and the siren keeps on going. With the number of bombs coming, that many sirens keep on going. So if I'm going out maybe 5 times a day or 6 times a day or 8 times a day, but the siren goes off multiple times, because that is the number of rockets which keep on coming. And thanks to the technology of Iron Dome, which almost intercepts the rocket to a percentage of 90-95%. And all these rockets are targeted into civilian areas. It's not a regular war, which is they're targeting the strategic location. They are 100% targeting the civilians. And it is absolute chaotic situation. You're running your patients, everything. Then you come back. You need to wait for 10 minutes and then you come back. And you are on the road, everything stops. If you're on the road, you got to sleep on the road and put your hands behind your head, because the fragments of the bomb can be dangerous. Similarly, in the house, you got to come out of the room and everything. This is what has happened. Your schools are closed. Your regular life is disturbed. You cannot go for shopping. You want to buy some things. You cannot go out. You cannot share time with your family. You don't know what is happening. What next? That is a big question. And if you see vice versa, when all these things happen, Israel retaliates. It tries to defend itself. It sends rockets. But as I said earlier in my earlier videos which happened, that Israel Defense Forces, IDF, is like Indian Defense Force. It's a defense force. It is there to protect its citizens. It is protect the borders. So that is how they retaliate. And that also, our two armies, when I compare this, when I see, because I'm born and bred in India, that we are soldiers with a conscience. We don't go to harm. Similarly, Israel also throws banners, pamphlets, makes announcements on the megaphone. They have phone contacts, so they call many people, the main people, and tell them that move out of the area, because Israel has already identified where to bomb, where the rocket's coming from. So they launch the rockets and they try to destroy those installations. Now when this thing happened, obviously the repercussions are worldwide, and then we have people who try to isolate Israel by talking rubbish and try to pressurize, and then when you see all nonsense goes on around the world. And one more thing I wanted to add to this, when all this thing was happening, for the first time, the Israelis experienced a local unrest. The local unrest was in cities like, it started with Beersheba, Haifa, which is the north, Akko, which is another city very close to Lebanon border. Beersheba is down south, which is known as the capital of the Negev. Then there are major cities known as Ramle and Lud, which are at the center, which are slightly south of Tel Aviv. A considerable good amount of Arab population. Now they started creating an unrest, like riots, and they started hurting people, killing people. And what happened? They took advantage of the situation. In Israel, there's a law that whenever this emergency situation takes place, you got to, for example, in my building, I have a security door, like, the digital door, but we have to keep it open, because if somebody going by, if the the rocket is launched, they got to rush into a protected area. So what happened? People started keeping their gates, houses open, slightly, the main gates open. So these guys started coming inside on the pretext of, taking shelter, but they were actually coming to attack. That is how people were attacked. People were killed. They burned synagogues. They got out of control. They got this chance, and they were saying, local Arabs were surprised at, oh, how is this happening? But they said, no, we are with our brethren from Gaza. So they were actually, it was a plan. It looked like a planned strategy that on this particular day, when we start this rubbish, we will also have unrest. So that is, it is easier to sometimes to manage the borders, but not the local. And that is how it was. It was very difficult. It's like the people were very, very scared. Very, how would I say? They were not sure how to take action. They couldn't go for rescue. So there was police vigilance, there was army, there were reserve forces. Of course, now after a long time, when the ceasefire took place, we are at peace. Schools have started again. People have started going to work, and we were just coming out of the pandemic. We were getting rid of one thing, and this new thing started. So it was like a double dhamaka. You're getting out of one issue and something comes in. So it is too much. It is very challenging. Very challenging. So this is what the ground reality is.
Yeah, thanks for giving that witness view of things out there. Very, very eloquent description. Thanks, Maya. Thanks very much. After that, I would request the panelists to present their opening remarks on the topic that we are talking about, Israel-Palestine war, new dimensions, this time particularly, because every war is unique. It takes place in unique settings, and so we believe every war has some takeaways or insights which have not been explored or discussed hitherto. So that has been the idea behind this panel discussion. So I would request our panelists to present their opening remarks, and I would like to start that with none other than Lieutenant General Shekatkar. Sir, your opening remarks, please. Your microphone needs to be switched on.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Namaskar, Suprabhat, Jai Hind, Shalom. I mentioned these three particularly. I have been to Israel. My classmate who studied with me became a very, very senior officer of the Israel Navy. I would request the people who are listening to it. Israel owes the independence of Israel to India. It was in 1918, the Battle of Haifa, he mentioned just now. I've been there, I've been going to speak to them, to the Israeli Defense Forces. The Battle of Haifa made the beginning of establishment of Israel. It also made the end of the Mesopotamian Empire. It disintegrated. And countries like Jordan, they all came out of this only. We had Jodhpur Lancers, Mysore Lancers, Hyderabad Lancers, whose horses were taken all the way, and they fought the Battle of Haifa. And that's why our Honorable Prime Minister, few years back when he went to Israel, first he went to Haifa and paid his homage. So Israel and India have their independence almost all together. We became independent in 1947 and they got independence in 1948. So we have grown up together. Our interests are same, our culture are same. Not that we don't like others. Right. I would make few points and thereafter we leave it to the discussion. Firstly, there is a divide in Islamic world and Arab world. Both are not same. It is not same. Arab world does not like Islamic world. Let me tell you, with a reasonable degree of confidence. Just 2 years back, Pakistan wanted to start a new organization of the OIC. Arabs have a different thing. In this conflict also, no Arab country joined Hamas. This was actually not the conflict between Israel and Palestine, but between Israel and Hamas. Why Hamas? Hamas wants to rule Palestine. Hamas wants to control the government of Palestine. It is something like Al-Qaeda. It is something like ISIS. It is something like Taliban want to control Afghanistan. Same way. So this conflict is not between Israel and Palestine. You rightly said, sir. Sastri Buddha said, you mentioned about this part. And I support that. So Arab world is different. Arab world want to have reconciliation with Israel. They want to live peacefully. I was in the army as a major when 1967 war took place. And Israel showed the way to Arab world that if you take Panga with us, we will hammer you out. In 73 war, after 71 war of India, Pakistan, again the Israel concept. The most powerful 3 armies of the Arab world could not defeat Israel. Could not defeat Israel. Israel can never be defeated by any of these people. And this is also known to Hamas. It is first time in the recorded history of Middle East, thousands and thousands and thousands of rockets were fired by Hamas on Israel. They didn't discriminate between the Israeli forces or the people of Israel. So the first point comes, we should ask them, whom are you fighting with? With the Israeli Defense Forces or with the people of Israel? And that is why entire nation of Israel is almost like armed forces. The second is South Korea. They have no option. And that is how I think one lesson we must learn in India from this conflict. This is my request to Vishwadhyan Kendra. We have similar problems in our country. Second, there's a duality of Hamas and Palestine. It was like Syrian ISIS. They almost captured half of Syria, half of Iraq within no time. And this is what Hamas wanted to start. Third point, I would request you. There will be a new alliance that will be coming up. It will be a role of China, Pakistan, Iran, and Turkey. They will have a nexus with Hamas. From where did Hamas get all these rockets? Where did they get the weapons? Where did they get the money? Where do they get the incentive? All these countries have joined together. And that is what, it may not be Palestine, but it is Hamas. Turkish president started voicing concern for Hamas. Chinese kept quiet. And the worst of all, I request the eminent people who are listening to me, United Nations kept quiet. They did not allow any resolution to be passed against Hamas, against Palestine. These are the new trends taking place in the world. If you are powerful, you can do what you want to. And Hamas was wanted to exhibit this point. Israel, friendship, India's friendship, I mentioned to you, we have grown together, we live together, we work together, and we are working together. We are not together against anybody else. We are together for the protection, prosperity, peace, and stability of our country. That's all we want. Role of new weaponry system. Have you ever heard in any conflict in Middle East that thousands of rockets have been fired? Unguided missiles. Once you fire, you don't have no control. But Hamas did not know. Israel had the drone and the dome. If suppose it was not there, can we imagine what must have happened? Unthinkable. My God, they would have done a great damage to Israel. But fortunately, the leadership of Israel, the military leadership of Israel, had probably foreseen this. And that is the lesson we should learn in India. We must foresee the future. We must foresee the future and prepare for it. Last 2 point is there is a overwhelming support to the international support to Israel's self-defense forces concept. Sir, let me tell you, no nation in the world, no human being in the world can outsource your defense and security to anybody else. You cannot outsource. Any nation, any person, any organization which think they can outsource their security and defense to somebody, they'll be ruined that very day. They invited the destruction of their own. The last 2 points, I'll say, next point mentioned is Israel's resolution to neutralize Hamas. They have virtually destroyed the leadership and infrastructure. That is what we should be aiming at. Not the rank and file, but the people who plan. Even Arab world will support. Mark my words, sir. If you take on Israel, even the Islamic world will not support, because they are thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away from Malaysia onwards. Indonesia will not support. They told us very clearly that we may be Islamic by religion, but culturally, Sanskriti se hum Bharatiya hain. We are Indians because of culture. The same proximity will happen Israel and India also. UAE, Jordan, Egypt, they all recognize Israel. So take my word, sir. Within the next few months, even Saudi Arabia indirectly will recognize Israel. So I think there is a need for us to think on these lines. If we can think, our webinar today will be purposeful. I do not want to go too much into history, but I am a believer of future, not to leave our coming young generation in a problematic condition. Let there not be another attack by Hamas on any child of Israel or anybody else. Even in Israel, I've been to these places. There are Arab settlements. They are staying there. They don't fight with each other. They are coexisting there. There may be some in between, like we have in India. There are some people for whom Pakistan is more important. China is more important. We have in India also. So similarly, maybe there are in Israel, but Arab and Israel who are staying in Israel, they are staying together. I'll stop here and request the next question. We can take it on during the interaction session, but this is my understanding of the conflict, sir, which you described so nicely, and our friend from Thane, who happened to be there. I've been to your place, sir. I've been there. I traveled all the way from the Lebanon border down to the south. I traveled myself in jeep. And you are right. Within 2.5 hours, you start from Jordan side and you are into sea. That is the size of Israel. And yet, not one country, or not many countries in the Arab world or anywhere else have been able to make a dent on Israel. That is what we should learn. That is what we should follow. That is how the nation must prepare. That is how we must train our young generation. Only then we can live with peace, hopefully peace. But we have to think on that line. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Your very comprehensive and insightful remarks. Thank you very much, sir. I would like to invite Swati Torsekar, with her opening remarks to begin this discussion. Swati ji, please. You are not audible, madam.
Swati, you are
Not,
still not
not yet.
audible. Swati, we can't hear you.
Sunil, what you could do is have a chat with her and figure out what is
Sure.
wrong.
Sure.
In the meanwhile, I would request Mr. Nissim Ruben to please come up with his opening remarks on the subject. Nissim, can we have you? Oh, thanks indeed, Nissim.
Prakashji and my good friend Herzl Simon, thank you very much for inviting me. Lieutenant General Sir, very good to see you. Namaskar, Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, and very good to see my cousin Meyer Moses. I have been in Washington DC since 2002, and as Assistant Director of for Asia at the American Jewish Committee, my role is to promote diplomatic, commercial, technological, academic, people-to-people relations between United States, Israel, and key Asian countries, which are Japan, Korea, Australia, and of course, India. And also my job is to promote relations with the diaspora, Asian American diaspora, Indian American diaspora, since the last 20 years here in the US. This current conflict with Hamas, it's something that sort of, every couple of years keeps cropping up. And we have seen, Israel is, as we know, from birth in 48 has been surrounded by hostile nations. Now, two of the major nations have made peace with Israel, Jordan and Egypt. But Israel has Hezbollah in a very weak state called Lebanon in the north and Hamas in the south. And we have to remember that these are, Hezbollah and Hamas are nothing but pawns of, or puppets of the big snake still sitting in Tehran in Iran. So it is the Iranians that use these puppets to flare up the region and flare up tension, because their aim is to destroy Israel. And we have seen that from time to time, every 3-4, on a regular basis, they keep firing a rocket or a mortar here and there. But on a regular, every couple of years, last year, time was 2014, there is a major flare up with Hamas. So until the world sees this as a problem that has to be addressed, it will not go away. And unfortunately, we have seen in the US also that our diaspora, Jewish diaspora, has been attacked by Palestinian Americans who were, if they were protesting in favor of Hamas, Jewish Americans were peacefully protesting in favor of Israel. And in a city like New York, which has been home to the world's largest Jewish community outside Israel, Jews were attacked just for wearing not even holding an Israeli flag, just for wearing a cap or looking Jewish. Or in Los Angeles, the Palestinian American thugs went to kosher restaurants and asked, "Are you Jewish? Are you Jewish?" and started attacking the diners. Now that is not done. And this happens, we have seen this happening in Paris, in London. And we, as the Jewish community, call on our governments to take strict action, because if you permit in the world's most vibrant commercial city, New York, if you permit this thuggery, then nobody is safe. And we have also seen British Indians peacefully celebrating Independence Day in London, being pelted with eggs and rotten tomatoes. That is, as citizens of our adopted homeland, it is our fundamental right to exercise our community engagements. So just wanted to start with that, and we'll take it up in the discussion. Thank you, Prakashji, and once again.
Thanks indeed. Thanks, Nisim, for that totally different perspective on how such conflicts arise and what ramifications or spillover of such conflicts in social life. Thank you very much. Sir, before Swati ji comes, General Shekatkar, may I return to you with some more seeking some more insight that we have seen this rocket attack and Iron Dome. So I always wonder, let me express my naiveness to start with. I am not an expert. So we always wonder as a commoner that those who are firing these rockets or those are equipping Hamas with those rockets, aren't they aware of Israel has Iron Dome and how effective those rockets are going to be? I always wonder that, point number one. And second related point, which probably is more serious than this for us, that we have a lot of borders, rather, if I may call them porous borders. And this was very terrifying urban war this time. As Meyer clearly said, they were attacking civilians. We have pockets on our border. Sometimes we have pockets within our homeland, like some Naxal pockets. Sometimes I wonder, what is the likelihood of similar tactics adopted in those areas? And why these people, Hamas and their handlers, were not aware of this Iron Dome protection that Israel had? If would like to know your explain us, sir, why this?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I must compliment you, sir. I think you have studied the Israel concept very well. My compliments to you. Not many people, I'm not trying to flatter you or anything. No, that will be wrong thing. But I admire your comprehension. How it is and why it is. Hamas did not take this into account. My reading is, because I've been dealing, you would have known about the Shekatkar committee just 2 years back. We have planned everything. We even planned for this sort of thing. Let me tell you, without going into detail. Let our adversary try and their stunt. They may not be there. I told them very clearly, if you take liberty with India, then what we will do to you, you will need another Vasco da Gama to come and find out where you were. I didn't want to be indecent. Our preparations are going on, and you are right. Take the proximity of Lahore and Amritsar. You're absolutely right. Not even 4.5 kilometers. Both the airports of Lahore and airports of Amritsar, they can be seen from the aircraft. So we have problems. We have problems all the way near Firozpur, Jammu, Pathankot, and all these places. We have. But let me also assure you, if anybody thinks they can take liberty with us in a conventional manner, we will hammer them out. I have no doubts. That's why India-Israel friendship treaty, which is going on, working on that. It is not that they will join us to fight against somebody, not that we will join them to fight against somebody, but exchange of views, ideas. Coming to the Iron Curtain or Dome, or drone, whatever you want to call it, Israelis have done. They have planned it. Because let me tell you one thing. The best intelligence mechanism in the world is the Israel mechanism. My request is even to the Americans to learn from these people. They had anticipated. 10th May was Israel's Jerusalem Day. 15th May was the anniversary of Israel's founding in 1948. Like we have 16 December for Bangladesh Vijay Divas, Pakistan calls it a defeat. Similarly, Hamas has been doing the same thing. And they have timed this place. They have timed this rocket attack. And rightly, who has supplied them these rockets? Where did they come from? Who paid for it? And these rockets could not have been fired from the basements. They must have been deployed. To deploy even 100 rockets, you need an open space of almost about 500 by 500 yards minimum, if not more. That is the area you require. And then once you fire, they are not guided missiles. An unguided missile is more dangerous than the guided missile. Guided missile is a precision weapon system. But the Israelis had taken into contest. And the moment they got a slightest doubt, they activated the whole system. And that's how they could save. Otherwise, imagine what would have happened in Israel. We wouldn't have been able to even record the dead bodies. And from India's point of view, mentioned, sir, why we are buying this air defense system from Russia? For what? Not to be kept in museum, but it is to protect our townships like Bombay, like Ahmedabad. I don't want to name some of the installations which are so costly, costliest in the world. So we are working on that issue. But at the same time, as I mentioned to you, we have conveyed, at least during my time, I have conveyed to them number of times, officially, unofficially also. And the versions are recorded, that don't ever take panga with us. Don't ever try or stunt. If you do that, you may not be there. What we will do to you, don't even think of that. And I think that is what we should support Israel. Will you allow, sir, any country small size to be taken over by anybody else? How can that happen? How can we allow that to happen? There are people in USA, that they look at the Jewish community in USA, my God, they are the people. But they don't do anything against United States. They are supportive of USA. Even their foreign ministers. That is the way you live together in 21st century, sir. And not propagate your things. My last point you mentioned about on this is, you see, if you go to Delhi, and if you are standing in front of Teen Murti Bhavan, facing the Rashtrapati Bhavan, there are 3 statues, Teen Murti. There's Teen Murti Marg, Teen Murti Bhavan. These are the Teen Murti of Rajasthan Lancers, Jodhpur Lancers, Jaipur Lancers, Mysore Lancers. They are the one who fought the Battle of Haifa. And every year we celebrate the Battle of Haifa Day there at Teen Murti Bhavan. I think my request to you, sir, will be, and to Vishwadhyan Kendra, explore these possibilities, explore these historical facts, and let us take the friendship forward. But we must convey to the people, our friendship between India and Israel is not against anybody else. They don't need to get worried. If our relations are improving with the United States, it's not against anybody else. This is the way we want to live it. I leave it to you, sir. We can take it further. I can see Madam has come. We'll be listening to her.
Yeah,
Over
sure.
to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Thanks indeed for that great explanation, clarification. Thank you, sir. I would like to believe Swatiji Torsekar is back online. Madam?
Yes, are you able to hear me now?
Yes, you are absolutely audible,
Okay, thank you.
clear and loud. So I would invite you to present your opening remarks, madam,
Yeah, thank
after
you.
I left. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Prakashji, and Suprabhat to everybody. The hostilities between Israel and Gaza have come to an end for the time being. It was United States President Biden who suggested, and Israel accepted their suggestion to declare a ceasefire. So the hostilities per se may not have surprised political observers of this region, but their timing indeed has surprised us. I can see that the focus has now shifted from the Indo-Pacific region to the Middle East for America and the entire world. Second observation about these hostilities that I have, which is a very distinct one, and it has been mentioned by almost all our speakers, distinguished speakers, is that the half-front war which Israel faced this time, while its army was at borders, at war with Gaza, their police force had to be engaged in violent clashes between the Arab and Jew population on streets of Israel. So this kind of a scenario of internal strife, is it going to be in future a permanent feature in all countries wherever a sizable radicalized population exists? This is a question for India, and it has been discussed to some extent in the previous statement. So we have also seen that the normalization deals which happened between Israel and United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan, they were expected to change the scenario in Middle East to some extent. I would say even Saudi was inclined to a large extent for this kind of a settlement, but this conflict has again changed this scenario forever. And we can say that in the coming few years, we will not hear so much of those America brokered peace deals to a large extent. We have seen that in United Nations also, these 4 states, although they chose to normalize the relations, they had to support Palestine on that platform. Now, why this has happened is a question. We all know that Palestine has a non-member observer status in United Nations. So long West Bank has been ruled by PLO and Al-Fateh, and Gaza was ruled by Hamas, which was supported by Iran so long. The media has been talking about triggers that led to the hostilities. Some have called attention to the Al Jarrah property dispute, in which the Arab tenants were mandated to vacate the property following a court order. The other trigger discussed was the postponement of elections in Palestine. The voting was scheduled on 22nd May, but the postponement was declared on 28th of April. This time, Hamas was hopeful of dislodging PLO from West Bank, and they were trying to take the control of entire Palestine, West Bank, as well as Gaza in their hand. So they look upon the postponement as a way to stall their entry at the helm of affairs of Palestine. Now, between Israel and Palestine, we all know that the conflict is always between PLO and Israel, one side for West Bank, between Hamas and Israel in Gaza. There is a conflict between Hamas and PLO as well. But the fourth conflict, which we all have seen, is the most alarming, is between the internal population within Israel. And this feature will not go away very quickly in near future. The triggers per se, I say that they do not prompt any conflicts as such, but the roots of conflicts lie elsewhere. And I feel that it is the scenario change which could have prompted the present conflict. The change of presidentship in United States from a Republican president to a Democrat president was a major factor, according to me, because President Joe Biden in his election campaign had shown his inclination to revive the Iran nuclear deal, which was brokered by another Democrat president, Obama, in 2015. We have seen that the architect of that deal has again been posted to Iran as the chief of affairs there by Biden administration. So I feel Iran may be feeling a bit about these developments. And then they have supported Hamas to take over Palestine and to start a new wave of politics within Middle East. We all know that, and General Shekharskar sir also mentioned about the pan-Arab emotions that are very prominent in the Middle East. And we have all seen that so long Saudi has been the center of these forces. But today it is the Turkey which is trying to take the leadership of these forces. And when Saudi wants to settle a peace deal with Israel and has shown that kind of inclination, then the turf is open to Turkey to claim that leadership. Now, this is the change scenario in which the conflicts have taken place, and they have learnings for India as well from various aspects. Sir also mentioned the axis between China, Turkey, Iran, and it is a very calling development for Indian scenario as well. These are my opening remarks, and I hand over to the guest.
Thank you, madam. Thanks indeed. Thanks indeed to enlighten us on a totally different aspect of what is going on. Let me turn to Nissim, because while Swatiji was making certain observation, I could see a curious smile on your face. So let me explore that smile further. Let me put this question to you like this, that there is a global concern about radicalization and the way it is manifesting into the fault lines of various societies, which is true also in Israel to a certain extent. And add another question to that. There will always be forces to exploit these fault lines for their own interest. So when it comes to powers like USA or any other, is there a case for running with rabbit or hunting with hounds? Do you see that sort of double play? I don't want to call it necessarily hypocrisy, but taking convenient positions concurrently. Do you see that around? And about this radicalization, what are your takes on that, Nissim?
Thank you, Prakashji. Prakashji, I would like to say that the United States, actually, when President Biden took office, when President Obama came and he, with then Foreign Minister, Secretary of State John Kerry, invested a lot of time in trying to bring, sort of forge Israel-Palestine peace, and so did President Clinton. But President Biden did not come with this agenda. No, he knew that he will have to manage this region, but his focus was number one, pandemic, and the U.S. had the world's largest number of deaths. We are 596,000 people died in the US because of COVID. So that was his focus. I don't think he was willing to get into this area, this conflict. But the Iranians we all know that the Iranians are master Bazari. They're very good at negotiations, and they use all tactics. So when the nuclear deal was signed in President Obama's term, President Obama had put the strongest sanctions on Iran, which forced them to come to the table. But once they came to the table and they started negotiating, their negotiating skills were so suave that it then appeared at the end that President Obama and Secretary Kerry were at their feet, falling at their feet to get the nuclear deal signed. And the nuclear deal was terrible in terms of Israel's security, because it would have, as it was signed, it would have given Iran a capability to acquire nuclear capabilities legally through the deal. And a regime that calls for the destruction of Israel day in and day out. And they are very serious about it. It's not because they are trying to, cajole their masses or something. This is their focus. And then when we hear in the streets of Washington and New York, tomorrow there's going to be a massive rally addressed by Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, a Palestinian-American congresswoman from Detroit. That's what they say in the rally. They don't say two-state solution, two countries living side by side. They say from the river, the Jordan River to the sea, Palestine will be free, which means no Israel puts the Jews in the sea. Oh, we have one weapon in the Jewish people, and especially those like Meyer that live in Israel. We have nowhere to go. Our backs are to the sea. We will fight for our survival. Thank you.
Thanks, thanks Nisim. Thanks for those remarks. Let me put a similar question to Swati ji. We are seeing two things concurrently happening. One, as you observed yourself, radicalization, and there is efforts to foment the passion and galvanize Islamic forces in the name of Islamophobia. And at the same time, as you observed, madam, and also General Shakatkar observed, there is a divide emerging more and more clearly between Islamic unity. That is, as General Sir observed, is between Arabs and others. Do you think this divide and this attempt to foment passions, what is the future of these things? Which way are they going to go and take the world in foreseeable future, madam? If you can comment on that, please.
Thank you, Prakash ji. I feel that the attempts to use the radicalization will continue, but so long we have seen that even Saudi Arabia was to some extent responsible for that. They have withdrawn themselves from this scenario. And it is the old players again, Iran, which was more or less driving the Shia elements, and Turkey, the Sunni elements. They will come to the forefront of this radicalization forces, and they may not go away easily because they know that they have a sympathetic kind of a administration there in United States as well as in the European side. Now, I am aware that even Iran tried to bring together the Shia and Sunni radicalized forces also. They have also done those attempts. But barring that, I feel that the efforts will continue. I strongly hope that Saudi is able to keep aside of these efforts, and their efforts of normalization of relations with Israel will continue.
Okay, thank you very much. We are, I think, yeah, we want to say something, madam? Please go ahead. Are you saying something?
No, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. The watch is staring at me, the clock is staring at me, telling me it is past 10, and we need to probably start closing this affair, this discussion. I know there are many questions that would have remained unanswered. People probably wanted to know more about few things, I'm sure. But actually, I look at it a bit positively. If there are questions unanswered, that opens up the possibility and necessity for another dialogue of this kind. So I would request all our panelists, starting with Meyer, to offer their closing comments if they have any. And after that, we will close this discussion for today and look forward for another opportunity to discuss it once again. So Meyer, I will go with you. Do you want to say anything to close this discussion?
Just one thing, that Israel is aware that diplomatically India may give whatever answers they want to give, but the Indian people, the majority of Indian people are with Israel. That is, they are very much aware of it, and they are thankful to it. You must have seen that during these 10 days, whatever was the answers given in the UN by India, but Israel kept on sending their rescue equipments for the pandemic. So that is what that relation should go a long way. And I'm in Israel, and I welcome anyone who wants to come and explore Israel. And we could work on many more possibilities other than the war strategies and a few other for the benefit of mankind.
Thanks, Mayor. You should ready to welcome some people from Bangladesh also now. Anyway, thanks indeed.
Absolutely, because Bangladesh after the bombing specifically, Bangladesh removed the stamp of valid for Israel. Like
Yes,
it's not
right.
only for something. It's a very positive move actually.
Thank you very much. Lieutenant General Shekhar sir, your concluding comments, sir.
Just 2 points, sir. You mentioned about our preparedness, for this rocket attack and so on.
Sir,
Of late, you are seeing in media and elsewhere that India is soon going to have Air Defense Command. It's part of our recommendation of my committee, or our committee, sorry for using word I, but for my, it is the Shekhar Committee's report that they are going to have Air Defense Command. And that will cater for all our friends who are around us, who want to destroy us. And we'll see what we can do for them. That is the answer to your first question. Now
sir.
coming to the closing things. Someone long time back wrote, the best way to motivate a man in war is not through reasons, but through invoking emotions. That is what Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, Taliban, Boko Haram, and even in our country, Naxalites and terrorists in Kashmir, they do invoke emotions. You take most of these attacks, they generally take place on Friday, particularly afternoon. I have done the research. I have studied 2,000 terrorist incidents in the world. There are the linkages. They ignite the emotions of the people who come to pray the Almighty. And when they come out, they start throwing stone, they start killing people. Continuation of this is, he recommends that manipulations of the human emotions is the art of military leadership. The art of military leadership. Without emotions, you cannot ask somebody to give their life. And therefore, government and governance is run by rulers, but wars are fought by defying all the rules of law. In the end, I have one request. A friend from USA, a friend from Israel, they all have mentioned. And whatever I'm going to say about Bharat, you just say in case there is some poet, कोई कवि अगर हैं, कोई प्रोफेसर इसमें बैठे हुए हैं, आपसे मेरी विनती है कि जो कुछ भी मैं कह रहा हूँ, इसमें भारत की जगह आप इजराइल लगा दीजिए. एक नया समाज खड़ा हो जाएगा. और वो है हमें अगर प्यार तो हरदम ये कहना चाहिए, है हमें अगर प्यार तो हरदम ये कहना चाहिए, मैं रहूं या ना रहूं, भारत ये रहना चाहिए. शेखर रातिल की वाणी थी कि इट्स नॉट इम्पोर्टेंट, इंडिया मस्ट रिमेन. उसकी जगह आप इजराइल लगा दीजिए. है हमें अगर प्यार तो हरदम ये कहना चाहिए, मैं रहूं या ना रहूं, भारत ये रहना चाहिए. शत्रु से कह दो जरा, शत्रु चाहे आंतरिक हो या बाहरी हो, शत्रु से कह दो जरा, सीमा में रहना सीख ले. And just now a friend from USA mentioned this about this. शत्रु से कह दो जरा, सीमा में रहना सीख ले, ये मेरा भारत अमर है, ये सत्य सहना सीख ले. और इसीलिए राष्ट्र की इस शक्ति को बढ़कर दिखाना चाहिए. मैं रहूं या ना रहूं, भारत ये रहना चाहिए. तो जहां जहां भारत आया है, आप इजराइल लगा दीजिए. There will be a commonality of goal, commonality of approach, commonality of thought process, and that commonality will take us forward. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thanks indeed for those inspiring words. I would invite Nissim to please present the concluding remarks.
Prakashji, in conclusion, again, I look forward to many more engagements like this with you and so many friends and supporters of Israel. And what Lieutenant General Saab said, I saw his Colonel Vijay also. The outpouring of love for Israel is very heartwarming, especially when you see in the Western world all these false narratives being peddled about Israel and the Jewish people. Listen, and what the Pakistani foreign minister said on CNN, that, Jews have deep pockets, influence in media. That's why, so that goes to show which side is true from the heart and which side has false narratives. So that is one. The second thing is, sir, that I mentioned one weapon that we have is that we have our backs to the sea. a small sliver of land. Nowhere else to go. And we know the history that 6 million Jews were killed in Europe during the Holocaust. And there was no Israel. If had there been even this great nation, the United States, did not open its doors, neither did Australia, Canada, UK. Few came, but most perished. So, a strong, stable Israel is must for the survival of the Jewish people. But let me tell you one secret that our Indian and Israeli and Jewish and Indian diasporas have, that the other side can never master, is that our women are very powerful. You will see that even this great nation, America, yet does not have a woman president in the 240-year history. But India and Israel had the world's first women prime ministers, and we have seen powerful chief ministers like Mamata Banerjee and Jayalalitha and others. Is this there on the other side? No. Which means that our civilizations will not only thrive, prosper, survive, and grow. This is the second secret weapon that I have told you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Nissim. Thanks for that very, very insightful observation. And with that, let me move to another powerful lady on our panel, Swatiji Torsekar, for her concluding remarks. Swati Dai.
Thank you, Prakashji. I want to add that the last 7 years under Narendra Modi's regime, Israel and India, the cooperation has flourished and it will continue like that. And the people of Israel do not have to worry about India's cooperation. Sometimes in diplomatic relations, silence is more eloquent than words itself. These are my words. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks indeed. Thanks to all our panelists. Thanks to our attendees. And while we are concluding this panel discussion today, I would request our General Secretary, Mr. Mishraji, Gananji.
Yes, thank you, Prakashji.
Gananji, I request Mr. Gananji to pass a vote of thanks. And I, Prakash Sasurde, sign off here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prakashji. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for your gracious presence on this wonderful morning. I'm Gyanendra Mishra, General Secretary, Vishwadhan Kendra VAK. Well, we were truly enlightened by the experts and our distinguished guests' wisdom, and we believe there is a lot to take away for all of us from here. And for this, we at VAK would like to thank Lieutenant General Dr. Shiketkar, Ms. Swati Toreskar, Mr. Mayor Moses, and Mr. Nissim. Well, this program would have not been possible without constructive support of my valuable colleagues. So we would like to thank each and every member of this wonderful team, such as our President, Mr. Ajay Gajaria, for his dynamic leadership, and then the fuel in charge of any organization, Treasurer, Mr. Narendra Gandhi, Vice President, Mr. Sunil Mishra, not only for his actions in every domain of VAK, but also for his technical handling of the session today, behind the curtain. Shri Narsimhanji, our guardian member, and our ex-president for his guidance and advices. Shri Sanjay Kelapuriji, again our guardian member, for his continued support. Well, Dr. Amar Bholeji handles and generally connects with consulates, and honestly, he has been the major driving force for this program to occur. So big round of applause to him. And we wouldn't be able to operate if our Karyalaya, the office, is not managed and organized well, thanks to Ramkrishnan Gadreji. Prakash Sahasrabuddheji, thank you for so graciously conducting this session. And Mr. Harzil Simon, more has been like a tazi hawa ka jhonka, breath of fresh air to all of us in the team. Thank you for all your effort for this session, for the program. I would like to thank Murliji for his creative inputs, and of course Virendra Veji for his energetic involvement throughout. And thank you, Mr. I would like to thank Mr. Aditya Marwal, who is going to sum up the whole session and create write-up for press and records. So thank you, Aditya. And now, last but not the least, this program was technically supported by our friend organization, Chennai chapter of VIC. They really deserve a big thank you gesture from all of us here. तो फिर हम जल्दी मिलेंगे, जल्दी ही एक नए कार्यक्रम के साथ. तब तक के लिए दीजिए ज्ञानेंद्र मिश्रा और VK की पूरी टीम को इजाजत. Stay healthy, stay safe, and yes, to remember today, precaution is the only option. धन्यवाद and नमस्कार.
Namaskar.